Hi, Alan Stratton here from CostMatters.com. There is no single answer to the question, which costs should we use as a standard? If you are setting a standard solely for internal management decisions, the answer is very broad. Internally, management can use anything it wants that would contribute to effective management. However, if you are setting a standard that will be used for external financial reporting, your auditors will say, "We have our rules." There are indeed many rules that you must follow, and you will need many long discussions with your auditors just for this very purpose. Traditionally, standard cost systems have included three categories of cost: material, labor, and overhead. These grew out of the major types of cost a business typically incurred. First, material. Material often was the largest cost. Material represented the purchase cost of items the business needed as inputs to its manufacturing process. And for a retail business, material represented the cost of goods that it would eventually sell. Second, labor. Labor was historically the next largest cost. Labor represented wages paid to workers who actually touched the product in the manufacturing process. This touch aspect has led to the term touch labor. Another synonym is direct labor. When originally used, fringe benefits were trivial and typically went into overhead. Supervisors are also not direct labor. Third, overhead. Overhead was everything else related to manufacturing. Historically, overhead was less than labor. And since overhead was a hodgepodge of costs, it was typically calculated as a rate based on material or labor hours or labor cost. Without computer systems, this was about the best any company could manage. With computer systems, one company that I worked for added several more categories. First, freight. Reasonable. Freight was for the cost of inbound freight on raw materials. Second, duty. The company manufactured all products offshore. Duty represented duty on raw materials and for finished goods brought back to the United States. And the company split overhead into manufacturing variable, manufacturing fixed, and corporate overhead. To my knowledge, however, these distinctions did not impact any significant decisions. They did, however, complicate my job in cost accounting. Corporate overhead for this company was a real pain in the neck. The story was that years earlier, the company had faced a profit shortfall. And to fix their earnings profile, they convinced their auditors that corporate overhead needed to be capitalized into inventory. That fixed the earnings shortfall in the short run, but caused significant problems for many years. As product prices fell over the years, generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, required a write-down of inventory to the lesser of cost or market. And since cost had been inflated by corporate overhead, the required write-down became significant. Gradually, the company found reasons to reduce and then to eliminate corporate overhead from inventory. For my part, I hope that since the visibility of the Enron debacle and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, this sort of manipulation would not occur again. For many modern businesses, the relationships between material, labor, and overhead have changed radically, especially for labor and overhead. With automation, labor has decreased, while overhead has grown dramatically. And historically, you may have observed overhead as being 25 to 30% of labor. However, for a capital-intensive semiconductor company, overhead ranged from 6,000 to 2,000% of labor. With this change, overhead cost management has become much more important. While external financial reporting may still accept simplistic overhead analysis as a percentage of labor, real-life management decisions require more resolution and overhead scrutiny. Managing overhead cost deserves to be the subject of additional posts that are coming. What are your experiences using standard cost? Please share below this post at costmatters.com. When cost matters, profits soar. I'm Alan Stratton from costmatters.com. Thank you.